It is now my very great pleasure, honour, to announce to you the outcome of the semi-final round of the ESUJ 2012 Inter-University Debating Competition. In room 101, the University of Tokyo Team 1 proposed the motion, which was opposed by Kobe University. In a split vote, 4 votes to 1, the judges decided that the team that should go through to the final is the University of Tokyo. In the other corner, in the next door room, room 102, meanwhile, Hitotsubashi University Team 1 spoke for the proposition. Keio University Team 1 spoke for the opposition. In an overwhelming vote of 5 votes to 0, the judges decided that the team who should compete against the University of Tokyo in the final round would be Keio University. We shall therefore now draw lots to decide who proposes the motion and who opposes the motion in the final round. So may I ask representatives of the 2 finalists to come forward so a lottery can be carried out. So University of Tokyo Team 1, Keio University Team 1, please come forward. Team 1 and University of Tokyo Team 1 will speak for the opposition. Any minute now, I shall therefore be able to announce the motion that will be debated in the final round. But I must go backstage in order to have this important piece of paper delivered to me. So stay as you are and we will announce the motion in a... The motion before the House for the grand final is: this House would make democracy a prerequisite for development aid. Minshusei wo kaihatsu enjo no jouken to suru. The stopwatches have started, the preparations have begun, and the debate itself will start in 20 minutes or so from now. So please be ready to listen to the final of this year's competition in 20 minutes' time. Thank you. I would like to invite the ESUJ.
Call this House order. Welcome to the grand final of ESUJ University Debating Competition 2012. I would like to introduce the honorable judges for this debate. Mr. Thomas Hosking, PhD student at Oxford University, current lecturer, guest lecturer from UK. Mr. Stefano Imbriano. Graduate of University of Leeds and guest debater from UK. Mr. Seb Farquhar. A graduate of Oxford University and guest debater from UK. Ms. Luce Ferrer. A graduate of Trinity College Dublin and studying Masters at Smurfit Business School. Ms. Stephanie Bell. Graduate student at Oxford and guest debater from UK. Mr. Boshiaki Gehara. Of ICU and Waseda University. He is now working for Accenture. Mr. Yuta Mochizuki. He is a graduate of Tokai University and now studying linguistics at Kansai University Graduate School. Mr. Koji Nochi. Works at Nikko Japan Corporation Limited. Mr. Sadahiro Idehara. He's a public officer of Nara City Hall. The motion for this debate is that this House would make democracy a prerequisite for development aid. Keio University is proposing the motion, and University of Tokyo is opposing the motion. I call upon the first proposition speaker, Mr. Oka Yuki, to deliver the first proposition speech within 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that in the context where aid is being abused by leaders of countries where we do give them, when the leaders decide to use the aid not for building roads and stuff that benefit the citizens, but rather for their military in order to suppress the citizens more, or when they try and power a certain ethnicity and give more power to one ethnicity in order to preserve the situation where they have more power. In those cases, we believe it's not good. And when we do consider the fact that development aid is given more to countries which are not developed, obviously, and therefore we need to recognize the fact that they are still politically unstable. And therefore we believe that in those contexts, we need to pursue for democracy, and we need to pursue what is best for the citizen on the ground. Even if we believe that, even if the aid is being properly used, we still believe that the system of dictatorship being in that country is going to be harmful in the long term, because if the leader changes, then the future leader still has a possibility to abuse the aid or abuse his power. Therefore, we believe that these nations must pursue democracy, as we believe, and as will come later in my speech, that democracy is the best form of government that exists comparatively. So, we believe that in those nations, when aid is being given by a democratic state, we believe that democracy must be a prerequisite. What do we mean by that? We don't expect these nations to become a fully democratic state before we give the aid, because we think that's completely unrealistic. But when we can see that these nations are trying to pursue democracy, when they try and host an election, fair enough, they may be rigged elections at first, but when we can see that these nations are trying to pursue elections, when they start to make more than two parties and some two political parties in order to form democracy, we think that that should be the sign, and that should be the trigger that makes these democratic states give the aid to these nations. Our goal is a fair and free election in these nations, and to have a separate judiciary, a legislation and administration, and to have a constitution made in that nation by those people. But we think they can't do that by themselves, but we can't just simply give them the aid, it's not going to be used for its proper uses. Therefore, we say that when they do show the sign of trying to change, we think we should help them and then cooperate. In other cases, we think we should not do so. And that is what we believe, and that is the model from our side. Firstly, the question that we must answer is why democracy? We believe that democracy is the most inclusive type of government that exists in our society. We believe that democracy is something that respects the will of the people, and it values participation, it values each individual citizen that exists in society. As someone said, it's a government by the people, of the people, for the people, and we think that is something really important to have. We believe that the measurement of development in the first place comes not only from the number of roads that country has or how rich that leader is, but it comes from the stableness of the government in the first place. And we think we believe that the most stable form of government, compared to an anarchy, compared to a dictatorship, compared to an oligarchy, is the form of democracy. And we think that is the form that we all should pursue in this debate, in these nations. We believe that democracy in the first place is the one type of government that most respects and most protects the human rights of the individual citizens living in these nations. We respect them, respect their choices, we allow them to make future choices on themselves. We don't take away their rights unless it's absolutely necessary. And we think those kind of things do not exist in other forms of government, and we think that's why democracy is important. We also believe on our side of the house that there is an international recognition, an overwhelming international recognition, that says democracy is the best form of government. The ICC prosecuted Kenya for election rigging, meaning the international society's value says that free and fair elections must be held, and that elections in the democratic state is the form that we should pursue. We believe that when we do have this international consensus that exists, we believe that the international society has a responsibility to pursue that for other nations as well, when we do recognize the fact that there are countries suffering without this form of governance, and that there are people suffering on the ground due to the lack of this sort of governance. We need to also recognize the fact that the citizens of the democratic state are happy with the democratic state that they are in, and they do respect the democracy that they live in. Therefore, we think that when we do have a government that embraces the value, when the citizens embrace the value that they do live in, we think the foreign policies of those nations should be in line with that democracy itself, should be consistent. Therefore, we don't like the US giving aid to dictatorships in order to just for their own benefit. We think that kind of consistency needs to be kept, and we think that's a responsibility that a government has towards its own citizens as well.
Sir.
Yes.
So, in case of sanction, in case of those things, there are many other alternatives such as freezing an asset to dictators offer. Why is it uniquely necessary for development aid?
Because we've tried everything else already, and none of it has actually worked. And that's the reason why we need something else. If you think those are going to work, you need to prove us how that's going to be better, and that's going to be more efficient than our plan. Because we think our plan is going to be the most efficient compared to any other solution that may exist. We believe that aid in the first place is essential for these nations to grow up. Countries such as Zimbabwe cannot keep on sustaining their economy without the aid that comes in. Countries that depend on aid, aid is essential for these countries, and we think that that is creating a situation where it becomes a strong incentive for these nations to change their ways. We believe that this is going to cause, firstly, more accountable ruling party, because they're going to have to disclose the way they use the aid in the first place, because the citizens are going to know that aid is only going to come if they are going to turn into democracy. Then the citizens are going to be able to learn how the aid is being used, something that doesn't happen right now. Moreover, we could see a situation where a coalition is formed between the ruling parties, because let's face it, even the dictator that exists right now will want to stay in power, but they will have to change the way that they do stay in power. And in order to gain maximum votes that they can get, they will need to start representing more of the people, and we think they could form a coalition of other parties, and that could go about representing more of the people who are not represented right now, and we think that is a good thing. We think that it could also stop the oppression by these dictators that's actually happening on the ground right now, because in the context that they are depending on the aid, and with oppression, aid is not going to come, we think there's a simple rational calculus being made by the dictator to stop their overwhelming oppression of the people. So we believe on side government as KO1 that democracy is the best form of government compared to the others. We think this is the best solution comparatively to the others that exist, which have not worked yet. But that's why we propose. Thank you.
Thank you, first opposition speaker. I call upon the first opposition speaker, Mr. Inoue Yuki, to deliver the first opposition speech in 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and all of our adjudicators, and hello, ladies and gentlemen, as Hatsune. I'm extremely happy to give a speech in front of all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, we whole agree the importance of democracy, which Prime Minister spent 4 or 5 minutes. However, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the assumption given by side of authority is that this is a unique and only way to tackle with the fears. We believe that other way. However, if we deprive the developmental aid, which is extremely necessary for people on the ground, those people's life will be lost without any history. We believe that we have to tackle before democracy. We believe that we have to retain the life. We have to sustain those people's life in order to achieve, in order to have prosperity in the future. Therefore, we're extremely proud to oppose this motion. Okay, so first I have 2 things to talk. I'll explain to you 2 things. First of all, why this motion is not workable to achieve the democracy. The second, I'll explain to you that how, after plan, the people on the ground will die. Before that, let me engage to what the previous speaker has said. He said, in the first place, tried to say that in the status quo, this development aid is used for military and so forth. It's totally ridiculous. Why is that so? In the first place, of course, the dictators in the first step have incentive to use the development aid for people on the ground. Why is that so? Because in the first place, they want to calm down the antipathy to take your seat. In order not to radicalize those people on the ground, by giving money, they can shut up those people's voices. Therefore, in this way, as long as they can calm down their antipathy, they have incentive not to use the money for them. And secondly, they care about the reputation in an international affair in the first step of democracy, right? Therefore, because they want to sustain the dictatorship or they want to sustain their own position, if they are criticized, they have possibility to be sanctioned or attacked by other countries. Therefore, the dictator in the first step do not care and have no incentive to do that. Therefore, and thirdly, that even if not now, okay, let's send the supervisor let's make condition to development aid for used only for infrastructure such as creating sewer, electricity, and so forth. Therefore, we believe that there is no necessity for unique development aid. Therefore, the argument doesn't stand. No, go ahead.
People are suffering right now, but we all recognize that, yet we do give the aid to them. How is that going to solve anything?
So, like I mentioned before, that let's create let's send supervisor or let's make condition and so forth. So the second, and of course they are totally narrowing down the debate, right? Because they are totally their situation is that already creating such a massacre and so forth. And in our model, the target is not debate because there's no chance even status quo on our plan. What we are talking is that we want to lose the possibility that there will be this genocide or the restriction will be radicalized, and I'll explain to you from now on. So let me move to the first argument about how there's status quo, they have no incentive, and those people on the ground can't have enough amount of aid. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, the first place, the dictator care about people on the ground, and of course they care about the secondary care about the reputation. Therefore, in the first place, they have incentive to give money in the status quo if they have plenty amount of money. Why is that so? Because they have sufficient money, right? And of course they have condition. Therefore, even if they want to, in order to maximize the sustainability of their own person, they think about not only their own luxuries, but also they have incentive or allocate this money towards those people on the ground. Therefore, in your status quo, as long as there is plenty amount of money exists by those aid from Western country or other country, therefore, in the status quo, the people on the ground can have money in the status quo. So, let me move on to the second. What's the situation after plan, ladies and gentlemen? The point is the situation after plan, ladies and gentlemen. We believe in the first place that I'll explain to you that this is the first argument. How how this motion is not workable, ladies and gentlemen. We have three reasons. First of all, of course, dictators have already done many crimes, crime against democracies, right? Therefore, after losing the influence of absolute power, they have possibility to be arrested or prosecuted by people on the ground. Therefore, they fear for that. Therefore, they have no incentive to lose their own position. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, that they want to remain their own position, right? Because they have enormous fortune, they can luxuriously spend their own daily lives. Secondly, they have no incentive to do that. And thirdly, that even without subsidy from those Western countries' aid, they themselves can sustain their own lives because there's money flow from Syria, or in case of Syria or Zimbabwe, they can get money from China or Russia and so forth. Therefore, they themselves do not fear for their own threat. For losing their own lives, we believe that this motion or the lacking developmental aid is not enough. So, having said, moving on to the second. So, how after plan people will take their seats? How people on the ground will lose their own lives, ladies and gentlemen. However, the situation is that after plan, ladies and gentlemen, because of course as mentioned before, the dictator can continuously have money. However, the whole budget they can use for the whole society will decrease, right? Because the whole budget will decrease, therefore it's insufficient to provide for all the people. Therefore, as a last result, the dictator will prioritize a certain group which they favor for, such as certain ethnic group or same ethnic group and so forth. Therefore, they create another ethnical group as a hypothetical enemy and so forth. Therefore, they try to make propaganda that let's oppress those people and so forth. Therefore, in this way, the oppression by dictatorship will be created. Therefore, in this way, they try to abuse. They try not to distribute money for those people on the ground, especially minority group and so forth. Therefore, in this way, those people on the ground's lives will lose their property, will be deprived, abused by those oppressive regimes and so forth. Therefore, if we compare the situation, ladies and gentlemen, in their status quo, those people on the ground, if they give plenty of amount of money because they have incentive to provide money for those people on the ground, those people's life is insured. However, if we take further, we push the reinforcement of oppression by the dictators with people on the ground, which will create a massacre or the genocide and so forth. We have to this motion will radicalize the dictatorship in order to save the people's life, which is the most important thing in this world. Therefore, extremely proud to this.
I thank the first opposition speaker. Now call upon the second opposition speaker, Mr. Ono-Zushi, to deliver the second opposition speech within 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. East Africa has been wantonly abused over decades, and it has sustained countless despots of most hideous variety, ladies and gentlemen. People are suffering racial violence. That's the harm coming from that side of the house. Ladies and gentlemen, those harms are occurring right now. We want to solve the problem by doing something about it. They concede somehow the intervention or economic sanction is good. Okay, our proposal is just an extension of those conventional methods. They principally agree with us that the international community has more imperative to act in order to minimize this human rights violation or democratize the state. Because all those conventional methods, just like intervention or economic sanctions, are conducted on the basis of democratization of the oppressed regime or autocracy, ladies and gentlemen. We are exactly doing the same based on the same principle that they agree with, ladies and gentlemen. That's the ground we propose the motion. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. But first of all, the issue of problem solution. Sorry. First of all, they said after taking our proposal, people will suffer on the ground. That's what is happening right now in many African countries or many developing countries, ladies and gentlemen. Racial oppression is as well. The issue is how we tackle with the problem. No solution from that side of the house. They are not constructive at all.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, that's a short-term harm, even though there will be some tangible short-sighted harm, just like a radicalization or antipathy. We are more than happy to accept that if we can achieve the protection of fundamental human rights in a long term by achieving the fair election or by achieving the bipartisan structure in which people can choose their own manifesto or their own political party. Thirdly, the assumption of that side of the house, the assumption of that side of the house is that dictatorship won't change them at all. That's the assumption of their entire argumentation. But that's not true in the first place, because dictator has incentive to sustain power according to their characterization. In order to do that, they have to win the election. That means the dictator necessarily has to be more exclusive under our paradigm in order to win the election. Because under our paradigm, there are at least more than 2 parties that exist in the election. In order to win the election, those dictators will have to change their stance to be more inclusive to represent other people's interests. That's what is happening under our paradigm. Moreover, from this side of the house, let me further analyze what is the problem in the status quo. Firstly, the aid has been wantonly abused for military spending, for example. In Zimbabwe, 24% of GDP on average has been used for military spending. They still have the legacy for their high military spending, even in the status quo. They say if dictator is a very good guy, if dictator abuse people, then people will become radicalized and give some kind of conduct rebellion or insurgent. But the problem is, dictator has strong and sufficient weaponry to crack down those anti-government movements, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's happening in many African dictatorial oligarchs, just like the case of Zimbabwe, or the strong dictator with military like Syria or other countries can easily crack down those anti-government movements, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, structurally, human rights of people cannot be protected on the ground if we keep the status quo. Secondly, even if current dictators appropriate using aid, if the system of dictatorial oligarchy itself is perpetuated, maybe future dictator will not be good guy as they characterize in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe the father or general of the military will take over the position, and those guys in the future will be very evil guys, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, what we want to change on our side is a structure of dictatorial oligarchy, ladies and gentlemen. Even the one dictator in the status quo is personally a good person. If the system of dictatorial oligarchy is that will continue, it will be. We see the probability of a future dictator abusing the power of his own position. Therefore, we want to democratize the country as a whole and fundamentally change the political structure as a whole. That's what we want to achieve on our side. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this gave you analysis that even after taking our proposal, dictator will be able to sustain themselves without aid. Therefore, they won't change. No, how dictator keeps his strong position? Dictator keeps his position to giving high salary to military generals surrounding him, ladies and gentlemen. If the dictator rules the aid, he can no longer sustain his own military, ladies and gentlemen. Thereby, the dictators and our paradigm will have a strong incentive to democratize the state so that they can continuously give aid and try to govern the nation more inclusive way by just making exertion to make a good policy so that they can win the election. Ladies and gentlemen, this kind of governance will be more legitimate. That's our refutation. Okay, I will take you now.
Then you're happy to kill all those people on the ground when those dictators don't accept this proposal.
The assumption of that side of the house is dictators won't change themselves at all. Why that's the case? Please explain me. We have told you they have a strong incentive to change themselves in order to sustain themselves in a more legitimate way or legal way. Why all dictators will suddenly abuse our aid? That's over your side. Moreover, if if the status quo will continue, human rights violation will also continue, ladies and gentlemen. How do you deal with those problems? Please answer on your side. Moving on to the final issue, the responsibility of international society, ladies and gentlemen. The international society, like the First World, has already imposed sanctions on oppressive regime, the dictatorial oligarchs, just like an economic sanction or just like a military intervention, ladies and gentlemen. All those methods are conducted on the grounds of democratization, ladies and gentlemen. After intervention into Libya, we had an interest to guarantee the fair election that will be given, that will be held there, ladies and gentlemen. In Cambodia, we sent the PKO to make sure that fair election could be possible, ladies and gentlemen. International community has already took precedent to democratize state by imposing sanctions or by imposing military intervention. That they consider those precedents, ladies and gentlemen, which means that they conceptually or principally agree with the international community's responsibility to democratize the state and through democratization protecting human rights. So finally, why democratization is most inclusive way to guarantee the human rights? In order for people to protect their own human rights, you have to choose who govern you, ladies and gentlemen. You have to choose who is protecting you or who is representing yourself. That is why suffrage is internationally recognized as a fundamental right. International Criminal Court prosecuted the politicians in Kenya who actively participate in the process of manipulation of ballot box and election rigging, ladies and gentlemen. We see the international community has already reached social international consensus on the jurisprudence that suffrage is inalienable right that should be given or guaranteed for each individual. We are very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank the second opposition speaker. The call upon the second opposition speaker is E. Johnson to deliver the second opposition speech within 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable adjudicators in this house today. Today on the government side, there's a big assumption that when they take this proposal, the dictators suddenly accept their proposal, and the second assumption is that such way of democracy immediately go away, because we believe there's no human resource right after democracy, and we believe by continued development, the people on the ground or normal citizens have to be educated or should have the benefit of the infrastructure. That's why we believe under our paradigm, the citizens have more power to deal with such coming democracy. That's why our paradigm is completely good. So in my speech, I want to talk about why our paradigm there's more good democracy are achieved. And secondly, I want to talk about, I want to enhance my partner's argument that people on the ground have to be more exploited by by this proposal. But before that, I want to engage what the previous speaker has said. Firstly, the whole assumption is that the dictator will accept this proposal. But Mr. Speaker, sit down please. And I passionately told you that this dictator, if they get up immediately from their own position, because they're huge antipathy on the people, and because they don't want to lose their position actively. That's why there's no incentive. There's no incentive on those kind of people. And sit down please. And their strange assumption is that they didn't think about when the dictator didn't accept this proposal. If the dictator doesn't accept this proposal, the people on the ground have to be more exploited because there's no minimum money to provide those kinds of people. We believe we have to, the democracy itself is very important, but we have to think about those kinds of people on the ground. So that they're they are completely inhumane proposal. And second of all, they're talking about sustained power, but we believe taking this proposal also we believe the dictator allows sustained power because not giving the development aid, there's no other democratic there's no possibility to to educate this democratic citizen. We believe even after taking this proposal, the most educated, the most rich people in that country is still dictator. We believe our proposal, which still educate person and still provide infrastructure is more good because there's more another citizen that will have democratic idea. And the other point is all the same because they say future dictator will be evil guy, but under our model there's no dictator. And next they talk about that they still sustain under the status quo, they still sustain military power, something like that. Sit down, please. But even after taking this proposal, and the dictator don't accept this when the dictator don't accept this proposal, then the other country like China or Russia, sit down, will provide such kind of military power. Russia or China won't provide the food, but they will provide military power because these kind of people want to support those kinds of dictators and to be friends of those kinds of dictatorship country. And finally, they talk about Kenya, but sit down, please. Kenya is a very good example of the weak democracy, right? That's a very good example of a corrupted democracy and weak democracy, and even democracy, that shows the weak democracies, even the more evil for those kinds of citizens on the ground. In the Kenya, because of the corruption of the government, they have to be exploited. The poor people have to be exploited, and people cannot go up the social ladder. This is a very good example for ourselves. But before moving on to our points, yes.
We don't expect sudden perfect democratization, but even if the dictator refuses democratization, we should take our proposal because of the responsibility of international community. Please engage our principal argument.
Mr. Speaker, we don't think international community have the right to kill the people on the ground, not giving those aid. Mr. Speaker, they are completely inhumane. And sit down, please. And next, moving on to our democracy point. Mr. Speaker, they characterize it that the dictatorship country is so inhumane, is so bad. But Mr. Speaker, the things are not so. Even in the North Korea, maybe it is the worst country you may think. People still have the computer. People can go to university and can educate it and still, if there's a possibility, they can access more democratic idea of the South Korea. We believe this model is completely good. Well, it is shown by Libya or Egypt or another Arab Spring, or these kinds of people actually supported by such network or infrastructure or providing infrastructure which is providing electricity. We believe it's under our model. People because the international community still give such aid, people can still get such education or can still maintain those kinds of infrastructure. On this kind of problem, today the government only said the dictator will use for their own. But Mr. Speaker, my partner already refuted to this point because there's some antipathy on those kind of people, and the dictator cannot use whole money which will receive for the international community. And the second, Mr. Speaker, the international community is not so foolish, Mr. Speaker, because development aid is not just giving the money without any supervisor, without any people. We believe development aid is going to be with a supervisor or any condition. We believe that our model is completely good, and they're misunderstanding what is a development aid. That's why we are still keep those kinds of supervisor or specialist on those dictatorship country. So under their model, actually the people can people can get power and can actually access the democratic idea. That's why I believe our model is still good to achieve our democracy. The impact of our democracy is much more better than their proposal. Because under their model, as I said, the only big democracy is achieved because people cannot be educated, people cannot get food. But under our model, because people can get food and education, we believe more sustainable and strong education, strong democracy achieved under our model. What I told you today is that actually their proposal is actually inhumane, and our model is more good for sustainable and strong democracy. That's why, in order to save more people, we are proudly oppose this motion. Thank you.
I'd like the second opposition speaker, and upon the leader of the opposition, Mr. Inoue Yuki, to deliver the opposition required speech within 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and honorable educators, and hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's House Day. So, to summarize the debate, let me point out 3 crash points. The first of all, whether this motion is necessary or is uniquely necessary or not. The secondary is that whether dictators have incentive to hand over their own position, which is the bottleneck of this debate. Because if the dictators do not hand out their own position, there is no benefit in terms of responsibility or in terms of democracy and so forth. And the last criteria is that administration and our plan. So, let me explain one by one. Okay, first of all, it determines a unique necessity or a proposal. Of course, like in dictatorship, like those people's voice was not somehow abused. However, in order to attack the problem, they escape. Like according to their logic, it's okay to freeze dictators' assets which directly stop income or destroy life of dictators, right? Therefore, as long as they don't deny this point, either not alternatively, we believe there is no unique necessity to sacrifice people's life on the ground, or sacrifice or deprive the money where people on the ground can use money, which can be used if we send the condition, if we have condition, we can send supervisor to democratic countries. Therefore, as long as they didn't tackle to the uniqueness, or they didn't show any uniqueness about developmental aid, we believe there is no necessity at all. Therefore, in this point, we are sparing up the side of imperative. Second point is that whether dictators have incentive to hand over their absolute power, ladies and gentlemen. Today, side of imperative try to say that in order to have like a legitimate power or legitimate position or so forth. However, ladies and gentlemen, the assumption given by the side of imperative is that of course, in case of democracy, they can't sustain their own position, right? Because of course, in case of democracy, they change the position, they change the leader. Moreover, the crucial failure given by side of imperative is that they didn't tackle any reason which was proposed from the leader opposition that the dictator had no incentive to hand over their own position by saying that first of all they feared for punishment or prosecution after they have handed over absolute power, or without any subsidy they can be supported by Russia, China, or by peers and so forth. As long as they didn't tackle, of course they want to see the very luxurious life which cannot be gained in case of democracy. As long as they didn't tackle or engage on this point, we believe that we got this bottleneck. Therefore, the whole argument does not stand ever at all. So, moving on to the last criteria is about a point of the situation after a plan, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's go see the side of our character. We have 2 characters in debate. The first character is the oppressed regime, which is already radicalized in extremely last situation and so forth, right? In that case, of course, the military, as I mentioned before, because they don't care about the sanction and so forth, which they have already amended. Therefore, we couldn't hear any mechanism that why there's dictatorship only after this taking this, taking proposal, they have incentive to withdraw. And moreover, on the other hand, we are talking about moderate democracy, which are still caring about the international situation, international reputation, or care about the antipathy given by the side of people on the ground, and so forth. In that target, we believe that in the status quo, those people's life will be sustained, or those people's life will be ensured, because there's plenty amount of aid. Therefore, they can have water or electricity, which means that they can sustain life and they can have possibility to gain the future, as my partner already told you. On the other hand, if we take proposal, of course, we push the dictator to oppress the minority or create oppression, which create a more and more radical oppressive regime, which we cannot treat with by sanction. Therefore, in our model, we create a much harsher and chaos situation in order to protect people's life with extreme protective.
The call upon the leader of the proposition, Mr. Oka Yuki, to deliver the proposition to fly speech within 4 minutes.
In a debate where both sides of the House really valued democracy and understood its importance, the opposition side recognized the necessity of economic and military sanctions. Although we told you they don't work, to which we had no response, they also recognized that the international community has a responsibility to try and democratize these nations. They also recognized that these leaders have already committed crimes against democracy, something that was said in, I think, the yellow speech, which is obviously oppression, election rigging, and so on. They recognize all these terrible things that have been done. Their solution, let's keep them in power. We don't think that kind of works on a moral level, but moreover, they said they are good people. Are they really good people, even though they have committed crimes against democracy, something which even that side of the House really values as something really important? We don't think so. Then they said they care about their reputation. Fair enough, but if they do care about their reputation, I don't think they will actually leave dozens of people dead on the streets because they would look really bad internationally. And therefore, if they do really care about reputation, as they seem to think, then the after-planned harm that they say is not really going to happen, for obvious reasons. And that only harms that is going to cause more oppression, cause more harms. But the fact is, the harm that's happening in the status quo right now is severe. It's so much severe, and therefore, even if it may increase, even if it were to increase, taking their best case scenario, it's not going to be too big a difference to the status quo. We think we should take the plan in order to try and save it, and we think we can save it with our proposal. Now, the first question in this debate is, will the dictators accept the aid or not accept this plan or not? We told you they will accept it because these countries and these leaders, they depend on the aid that comes in, something which was also recognized by that side of the House. We think in that context, then we think that leaders and the country have an incentive to change the way they go about doing their things, and we believe that it's going to cause more accountable parties, and it's going to cause more representation, because these leaders want more voice from these people, and they're going to have to represent them even more so. And we told you that it's going to cause the oppression to end, because they're going to have to make it end in order for the aid to continuously come in. But even if that side is not going to happen, they're not going to accept it. Still, the deputy leader's argument was that we're going to have internal democratization. Why can that happen if you're also saying, on the other hand, that these dictators want to stay in power? We think that's another contradiction that came in from that side of the House. But moreover, even if we cannot accept it, there's still another question which only our side of the House really addressed in this debate, which is, should we do it? Should we not do it, regardless of the consequences, on a principle level? That's something which only we talked about, and that is that we firstly told you that the system of dictatorship in the first place is a problem in itself. Even if the current dictators are being angels and they're being really nice to the people, the next leader could be a real devil at it, if you like. And therefore, we think having the system in place is the problem that we have, and therefore we see the need to change the system in the first place. Moreover, we told you from the start in my first speech that the democratic states that give the official development aid, they have a responsibility towards their own citizens in the first place to make sure that their foreign policies are in line with what they with the values that the citizens embrace. Therefore, we don't like the United States giving dictatorship money just so that it benefits that nation. That argument still has gone unrefuted by that Southern House. We told you, as a responsibility of the international state, we need to take this stand. We told you there is an overwhelming international consensus that that democracy is the way to go. Case in point, ICC in Kenya. To that, all they said is, well, are the government side willing to kill people? Well, you know, if they're also happy with sanctions, then that's another contradiction coming from that side of the house, because even with sanctions, it's going to cause a similar kind of harm. So therefore, for all these reasons, KO1 wins this tournament. Thank you.
I have the lead of the proposition and close this round. Thank you for your cooperation.